Good afternoon, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of WrestleTalkShow. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman, here to bring you the latest and greatest professional wrestling news, including the latest news, bits, rumors, coverage on TNA Victory Road, and of course, as always, a segment and a rant or two, or better, depending on how caught up I get. First and foremost, we gave you the demographics yesterday afternoon, and we want to thank you guys for that success. Without your viewership, it would not be possible. The video from yesterday has already gotten 40 hits, less than 24 hours from when it was posted, so I greatly appreciate that, guys. Thank you tremendously. But let's move into it. There are no ratings, but we'll start off with your wrestling news, get into your TNA coverage, and then go on with the rants and the segment. Or we'll just do it off the cuff like we usually do, but we'll make sure we get it all like we always do. Current Connecticut news. Connecticut lawmakers are discussing looking into a government oversight committee for pro wrestling in WWE's home state. So Connecticut lawmakers considering it's already been announced that Linda McMahon will run again next year as a result of Vince McMahon's promiscuous activities. He thinks that nothing can touch him. The marriage has stayed solid, but he's not known for his faithfulness from what the news sources hint at and say. Nothing's directly been confirmed, but it brings up the question automatically, why on God's green earth would you spend another $50+ million knowing that you're not going to win? The loss last year should have told her she's too closely involved in professional wrestling. It will always be the reference point for her opponent. It will always be the reference point that kills her, because she can't deny being the head of the company, making the millions that she made off of said company, and it's the only way she's able to run. She can't really deny any of it because her political campaign was funded primarily by World Wrestling Entertainment, and whatever she couldn't cover out of personal funds, it was write-offs for World Wrestling Entertainment. They didn't lose $50 million. They lost a nice chunk of change. If I had to give a guesstimation, I'd say just say they lost anywhere between 25 and 30, because once WWE corporate money went into it, investors seen it as an opportunity to have Linda in control of the laws pertaining to wrestling in Connecticut, and that's what they were shooting for. They were shooting for a couple of obvious and inobvious things. If Linda took control, the most obvious and the only thing worth mentioning is she could fight any insight, any investigation pertaining to World Wrestling Entertainment. So of course they want her to win. WWE does not want to be scrutinized. They know they're doing wrong. They know that if they're caught, in a previous video, I believe it's called Independent Contractors and Fair Treatment, something along those lines. Look in the YouTube archive, youtube.com/CWE Company. But everything, if they lose and get government oversight, and these wrestlers have to start having insurance and pension plans and health care plans like you, me, and everybody else have, then it would all be retroactive, and Vince would have to spend money to take care of his people. And Vince will tell you when you're standing in front of him, oh, you're a star, you're the next big thing. He said it to Droz when he tried to recreate Droz right before his accident. And what happened to Droz? Droz was paralyzed. Vince wrote out his contract, basically paid off the rest of his contract, paid his medical bills long term, got him set up, and you haven't even seen a throwback to draws because Vince McMahon thinks he does no wrong. Thinks that these guys know the risks. But I'll bring it up again. If your bottom falls out, your Undertaker, just for example, take a couple stars. Your Undertaker, your Triple H, your Miz, and your John Cena all succumb to injuries that will bench them. One, you have not moved your youth movement enough for the fans to accept any kind of replacement yet. And secondly, and more importantly, if and when these guys hurt themselves, your days of making millions upon millions are done. So I've discussed this before. WWE quarter to quarter has an operating budget that carries over with it every year after all their expenses of $200 plus million a quarter. They're doing it because they don't want to, not because they can't. John Cena, Miz, Randy Orton, the list goes on. Vince McMahon could give two shits about you. Yes, it's expensive, especially for the work that they're classified under, but to classify them as independent contractors, you detach all your involvement unless they're making money. Then they're your next big thing. Then you love them, Vince. But the minute they cost you money is when you forget all about them. Pay off the remaining years of their contract, pay any current and related medical bills to their activity in the ring, and he writes you off. Wrong, Vince. Wrong. Spend it, get a package, keep your roster under X amount of people to fit whatever insurance package you fall into for company size-wise. But show these wrestlers that they're not just your meal ticket, because there will be no more WrestleMania, no more entertaining WrestleManias if the, knock on wood, happens. If this happens, you lose major stars, you drug your feet on the youth initiative. The only person that even shines relevant to a youth movement is The Miz, like we discussed before. You're probably going to throw a bunch of people into WrestleMania, and then Monday, when The Rock supposedly appears, be either video conference or in person, he couldn't be bothered to travel to Buffalo, New York last week, but he's making the same amount of money. Rock, no disrespect to you, I'm just saying, wouldn't it hurt you to get out a little bit? Your movies are good, but they're not that good. Wrestling's been a family to you, but getting back to the point at hand, ensure your assets that guarantee you this money that you're so comfortable with reporting at every conference call. Give these guys the feeling that their boss cares, because right now it looks like Vince likes me until I get hurt. So they're in the back of their minds, they have to live with, especially your Rey Mysterio, and I'll give you credit there. You've given Rey Mysterio opportunity after opportunity. He's even working on an injury now, trying to avoid knee surgery that would probably, after so many injuries before, WWE would end up telling him, go part-time, or, you know what, Ray, we have to part ways. You're too injury prone. You're too much of a risk. And that comes full circle too. Parting ways with somebody because they get injured performing in a business that makes you money. Kids love Rey Mysterio. You target that demographic when you bring Rey Mysterio out. So you need him as much as he loves the business. Why not, for a change, show these wrestlers that they are of value, that they're not independent contractors or independent workers, and their risk is their risk just because they signed something on a piece of paper. I'm not saying give them a lot of money, but give each one a little bit of a fallout severance, if you want to call it, that if you get hurt, we'll cover your medical bills, we'll buy out your contract, because obviously you can't wrestle anymore, depending on the severity of the injury. And we'll give you a little stipend that every month or so until it runs out, we'll get you on your feet to show you that your years of dedication meant something. Not attaboy while you're doing good and holding titles, but take a bump the wrong way and put him on a stretcher, get him in the hospital, somebody get me an invoice for the hospital. By the way, accounting, bring over his contract, how much do we actually have to pay, and how much can we get away with not paying him because he's technically not performing. Vince McMahon is the master of loopholes, but I'll get into that later. This might end up being another 40-minute one, so I hope you enjoy the extra content. There's one other video, by the way, just a sneak peek, but we'll get into it in the segment 2, but I want to tease it a little bit. There's a non-related wrestling video that I downloaded last night and will post sometime. I was very tired, and because of my cerebral palsy, was taking some muscle relaxers that when I recorded it, I might have went on and on, but I'd like to think I made a point, and there's some bonus material in there. I just don't know when I'm going to upload it to YouTube. So just to tease it, but the Jersey Shore is coming up too, and I'm just going to get into the rants as we go through the stories, and we'll be able to buzz through Victory Road. I mean, that title match especially. Are you kidding me? That's all I'll say right now. Moving on. Bob Barker in the Hall of Fame, they announced another celebrity induction, and excuse me, the price is wrong because whatever they pay Bob, if Bob's going to be another entertaining host at WrestleMania, I know it was dismissed, but that's not to say that it won't happen. But it's officially been announced. Price of Right host retiree Bob Barker has been inducted into the Hall of Fame celebrity wing. Really? But every year, when we ask for Owen Hart, when we ask for Chris Benoit, it's a no-go. Now let me make a point real quick, because this was brought up recently about inductions and Chris Benoit. What he did, and my opinion counts for everyone that helps me on the show, myself, I do not condone the murder, suicide whatsoever. Whatsoever. It's reprehensible. It's uncalled for. But there's also another point. It's actually in a note on the Facebook page, on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CWE Company, and look at our notes. Scroll down a bit because it was written a while ago. And also the new one on Kurt Angle, but we'll get into that in the segment, and then the segue into the blog posted last night. I'm not saying that the murder-suicide should be condoned, but the man wrestled for every promotion and had his best years in World Wrestling Federation, or WCW, and then the buyout, and then WWE. 22 years of professional wrestling, and it goes back to Vince McMahon not caring. Anything that's bad publicity, never mind the fact that the guy gave his life to your business. I'm not saying stand on a podium and recap everything, including the tragedy or how we lost him, with a nice little video package. But he has 22 years of footage, and you can't honor the man's wrestling career? Let's real quick forget him. I'm not saying remember it forever, and the most recent DVD, to see him on it, that was a shock. But it was a well-deserved shock because he was a part of the event. I forget if it was like a No Way Out or a Best Of DVD, but he was a part of it. Do not condone the crime that led to his end, but do not dismiss 22 years of professional wrestling. Chris Benoit, the person, was a disgusting human being towards the end. But let me bring this up to you. He went through roid rage. Do we all remember the early days of Chris Benoit? I do. He was a tiny guy. Remind you of anybody? Sean Waltman, X-Pac? Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but formerly known as the 1-2-3 Kid in the early days of the WWF. Do not erase his contributions to this business just because the way he went out is wrong. Secondly, just because it's bad publicity on both counts, do not pass over Owen Hart. That was entirely World Wrestling Entertainment's fault for not testing the line, just wanting to do a spoof on WCW because Vince was so scared. If you rewatch Wrestling with Shadows, the Bret Hart story, I rewatched it after about 10 years, about 2 weeks ago. Vince Russo was a part of that. To not test that line and make sure it was safe. Blue Blazer, Owen Hart, whatever he was. The Blue Nobody, whatever. I'm sure when Shawn Michaels did it, I believe it was at a WrestleMania when he came down from the rafters in the sequence, I'm sure you checked and double checked that. But my argument is you'll put bullshit people like Bob Barker into a Hall of Fame, but then you want the wrestling fan, the fan who's only interested in the wrestling, agrees with you entirely about the tragedy that led to Benoit's downfall. And I can sort of see your point about not wanting to revisit the past with Owen Hart. But Owen Hart was an accident, and Chris Benoit gave his life to this business. He was going through marital problems at the time. He obviously, and it's not confirmed even though it's been investigated because, let's face it, it's well known that Vince McMahon condones steroids. It's also well known that when he does, it's never tied to him. Imagine the WWE like a giant mob. The mafia. Things happen, but then it gives Vince, there's so many people, Kevin Dunn, you put a name on it corporately, and it can be washed away. He can stand in court and literally say, I had no idea. When Sean Waltman said in the first steroids trial that I was told I had what it took, but I was too small. Chris Benoit was a small guy. Now, I'm not saying they're responsible for the outcome, but like I said in the blog, The Ghost of Chris Benoit, or I believe it was also a video too, 22 years of wrestling, The Ghost of Chris Benoit, 22 years of wrestling forgotten. It's a 2-part video series, a half hour in content, 2 15-minute parts. But I'm not saying that the outcome was your fault. But WWE, you knew damn well that Hulk Hogan, X-Pac, and Chris Benoit, you suspended Chris Masters for the same thing. So you know about it. and you acknowledge it until the wrestler gets caught. Now you've been put in a position that as soon as the wrestler gets caught, you have to take affirmative action. I understand the business angle of it. But it's known that you condone it off the record. You tell these guys that they're too small, their dreams are to be professional wrestlers, and I'm not saying that one means justifies the other, but what's the alternative? You get a fat, over buff Triple H. He's so obsessed with looking like the action figure that when this match happens at WrestleMania, they might want to give him the entire ring, because he's going to need it. You have your alternatives that'll probably end up in the Hall of Fame first, like Triple H, who, let me go on national TV and bury the competition in an evil, spiteful way, but then JBL can turn around and turn it into bury him, but in a comedic way, so everybody knows it's part of the act. You'll induct Bob Barker, but men that actually gave you the better part of their lives. Chris Benoit was headed towards a divorce because of infighting, his son's problems, and primarily the travel schedule of WWE, which he complied with every time he was asked for. It was even noted that the day he died, they found it uncanny that he wasn't already where he was supposed to be for the pay-per-view. He was loyal, he was dedicated. I'm not saying overly showcase him, but Bob Barker before Chris Benoit, 22 years of wrestling means nothing to you? Owen Hart, an accident, negligence on your part as far as I'm concerned. That rope should have been tested more times than one, and seconds before he did it, it should have been tested. But no, give it a couple yanks. Vince Russo gives it a nod. Owen Hart falls to his death months after building his dream home. And I'm not saying Martha Hart's right either. She's gone overboard with this lawsuit thing. I would be honored if my fallen husband, that the business tried to pay tribute to him any way that they could. But now her sympathy is just turned into, she wants to turn around and make a cash cow out of whatever happens to show or say Owen Hart in it, because she's gotten away with it once. In WWE, instead of dealing with confrontation, they'll either, like Chris Benoit, you can relate it, instead of dealing with the confrontation, can we just forget about this, please? His wrestling doesn't matter. We're not going to show him anymore. So could the general public please leave the WWE alone, because they're tired of being picked on. Well, Vince, maybe if somebody picked on you a little harder, some of your men would still be alive. When you buy out contracts because of injuries and basically put one time, I'm not saying that they stayed in their glory days, because maybe some of them were just like Randy Savage never looks good. That's why it's always said that he'll never make the Hall of Fame. But when there are injuries because of the performing you contract them to do, put them on painkillers, and we lose more wrestlers. We've lost more wrestlers in the last 2 years to overdoses and drug problems, and you want to sweep it under the carpet instead of saying, you know what, at the next shareholder meeting, I think we're going to extend the wellness policy to where after these guys leave us, they're still taken care of, because they're not just a dime a dozen. What do you think happened with the Army when all those people were dying? Less and less people wanted to enlist because they didn't like the odds. It can totally blow up in your face, Vince. And all I'm saying, Bob Barker instead of real wrestlers. Really? Show some respect to your real wrestlers. But you won't do that. You'll do whatever USA Today Whatever option gets you in USA Today and Entertainment Weekly. Your spinoff of The Rock got you in every local newspaper, Miami Herald, this, that, and the everything. You brought back nostalgic fans. Mission accomplished there. But to forget about people that gave you their lives and performed for you and the fans that pay your salary. You wouldn't have all those nice homes without us, the smart wrestling fans. Without them, the fans that put their asses in your seats at $25 and up a ticket. You wouldn't have anything if people weren't concerned about sporting their favorite John Cena gear. You wouldn't have any of this. So start showing us that you appreciate it. You over-entitled bastard. And I'm sorry to get so heated about this, but when a wrestler fucks up, like give an example like Awesome Kong. When a wrestler fucks up and gets a DUI and then is under a suspended license, their own fault. I'm surprised they even still took her, but they obviously consider that trivial. But let's forget about whole careers just because it doesn't make WWE look good. No, Vince, you don't get to play both sides. They made you money, so show them that you appreciate them. We'll come back to it. Because I'm getting a little too angry at my own good that this guy keeps making millions every year. But every fucking conference call, he has a way to explain how Vince McMahon still made money, but we can't help the share price. It's a trend. And we're going to throw all this youth movement into WrestleMania when you had 2 years to segue everyone in. But instead, I'll go back to my original rant. Let's bury John Cena. I'm not John Cena. Morrison. Morrison should be getting a bigger push. But let's bury Wade Barrett. Let's stick him on SmackDown after the stand he made when he first came in. And all that. Let's squash the possible Sheamus versus Triple H for revenge. Let's not do anything that makes sense, Vince. Let's do what Vince McMahon likes. And it's time, I'm not saying TNA is any better, but it's time that the wrestling fans stop going. Stop. Stop condoning what this man is doing to the business. It's not entertaining anymore. You're going to get the month of the road to WrestleMania, which is always hype. And then he's going to go back to same old, throwing whatever he wants on TV. Especially when you hear Linda's going to rerun in 2012. WWE will have about 6 more months to a year of the program you see now, maybe pushing the bar a bit. And then we're going to get babied again. The man who, years ago, exact words were, "We're sure you're tired of having your intelligence insulted." Well, you still don't think we're intelligent. You take our money, you use our wrestlers, you use guys that... Daniel Bryan should be bigger than what he is. The independents should be begging for him back. If I were Daniel Bryan, I'd be asking for my release. Caval... Thank God Caval got out or is in minuscule. But the independents are the only ones that will show these guys respect, because when you get into WWE, Vince McMahon more or less says your previous work doesn't count. It's like you're starting over. And if you can't wrestle the WWE style, then you're not really a wrestler. Show these people respect is the sum of that rant. Stop treating your fans and your employees, yes, I said it, not independent contractors, employees, with respect. Instead of you reaping all the benefits and these guys have to worry if tomorrow they're going to have jobs because you haven't picked the next best, you've picked the next best thing, or they get injured doing something under your orders. Stop being so selfish. This business, your father didn't start this business to be all about himself. And you damn well know it. And it made sense when you were fighting Ted Turner, Rally the Troops. Because then you actually gave the impression that you cared. But what's Vince's solution to not caring? Buy the competition. Use the roster. Integrate the roster for a little bit. Split up the shows, ECW. Did you know that ECW was bought for a little more than $250,000? Here's how that went. Vince McMahon went to bankruptcy court with Paul Heyman. Vince McMahon paid all of Paul Heyman's outstanding debts because of running ECW. The expression is he was running it on credit cards and money he didn't really have. Vince McMahon pays off said debts and as a return gets one of many assets one of few that Paul Heyman had. The only thing Paul Heyman had to leverage is once that was paid, Vince McMahon was the sole owner of ECW. And what did he do? Instead of going with my theory of no buyout and make it look like Vince McMahon could still be the runner up in the top office, but make it look like it's three brands still competing with each other. That way you have wrestling space through the week. And Vince McMahon gets what he wants, and the fans get all the wrestling that they're used to. No, let's monopolize it to where even when we're losing, like the shareholders brought up earlier, beginning of this year, even when we're losing, we'll win because we're the only game in town. You cost a lot of people needlessly their jobs, a lot of good wrestlers their jobs, and you do not care. This oversight committee needs to step in and make you pay some things. Make you pay a lot of things. Retroactive, I dare say. Own up for those people that stood up for you and put your business where it is. Any other promoter would have done the same. Why do you think they brag about the independence? Because the independence gives you action you want to see, and it's not regulated, and it's not one man's way or the highway. And if it is, it's actually a storyline, and not let me feed my commentators what they're supposed to say and not be their own people. It's independent wrestling. No middlemen. Be a man, McMahon. No pun intended. But these guys make your bread and butter. And we'll get back to that because I need to rush through this. You aggravate me, especially with this. This segue into my Jersey Shore exclusive content that I might publish. Snooki is going to be on, you heard it right, this week. As if TNA didn't fuck it up enough. WWE is proud to announce special guest host and further WrestleMania hype for the guest host to be a segue into Snooki, everyone's favorite whore. And I say that a lot in the bonus material, so bear with me. But what part of this is wrestling? It's like Bob Barker in the Celebrity Wing. I'm sorry, they just go hand in hand. Snooki contributes nothing except her openness, her drama, her bitching, her moaning. She's not attractive. You want to segue into other viewers might watch Raw if Snooki's on there. I, for one, will turn your product off like I emphasized in the bonus content, but you'll hear all about that in the next day or two. I'll publish that. Snooki is not relevant. She's not worth anyone's time. She brings nothing to the table. She should not be on Letterman dodging the questions about being an ongoing alcoholic. And she starts all of her own problems. And then the solution supposed to be, oh, I'll fight with you and then we'll dry hump in a hot tub. Let's get our key demographic right on that. You want your 12 to 18-year-olds to be watching this. That would go great with your segue into it's cool that the hero John Cena is making gay bashing jokes in 2011 because we're a relevant promotion. We understand entertainment. That was the problem with your new marketing idea, bud. You do everything you can. If you ever look it up, take the chance to look it up, fans. Look it up. WWE does not market itself as wrestling anymore. It's fast-paced, dramatic, edgy entertainment, which gives them carte blanche to throw Ocho Cinco, Bob Barker, the little guy from the PSP commercials. Snooki is not entertaining. She wrote a book that spit in the face of every person that's ever wanted to write a book legitimately about something. She has nothing to say. She's MTV's golden whore because for some reason the audience wants, she's like the Howard Stern, if you want to, not as funny or as talented, not talented at all. She's just going to stand there and be whore-like. But she knows nothing about the product. Nothing to the extent that she should. And she's going to be your guest host going into a WrestleMania that you want to hype as entertaining. Don't waste the money. Call her today. As a matter of fact, it goes down tonight, I believe. Your Monday night, this is happening on March 14th. So it happens tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, on the USA Network. So expect her to be wearing things that you wouldn't want your kids to see. Expect her to make no sense at all. Her jokes to be unfunny and unentertaining. And then hopefully the guys in the back after the first 5 minutes will realize this chick brings nothing to the table. She's on late night TV for absolutely no reason at all. She's not an entertainer. She's not a comedian. She's not a wrestler. She's not a football player. She's a human being who has no values, and this is what you want your key demographic to see. By the way, maybe John Cena can stand next to her and shoot gay jokes at her co-stars, and then Kevin Dunn, you would have your whole nice little package, wouldn't you? And your writers would be thrilled because they wrote it. Get real. Call Snooki up tonight. Tell her you changed your mind. Give her half of what you were going to pay her to come out if she's already here. And tell her to hit the goddamn road. I want wrestling in my wrestling. Not the Spice Channel meets USA Network meets pro wrestling. Enough's enough. As of Friday, WWE announced that its stock dropped 7% just on Friday. Friday's close, it closed at $12.67 a share. Thursday, the day before, closed at $13.58 a share. TNA, the honeymoon was a part of the card, but we're about to give you your TNA action in a minute. And your segment will be Angle's disrespect to coincide with the blog I wrote, and Jarrett Angle in general. So the three of them will be the segment outside of the 38 minutes of ranting and news you've already gotten. So, right off the top, I apologize for damn near the 40-minute delay, 1 minute short of 40-minute tease. But TNA Victory Road, and like I always do for every one of their pay-per-views, we're just going to skate through them. Orlando, Florida, Bully Ray versus Tommy Dreamer in a no DQ Falls Count Anywhere match. 3D by Dreamer to Bully Ray. Dreamer wins after 10 minutes and 45 seconds of wrestling. Next, Angelina Love and winner versus Sarita and Rosita for the Knockouts title. Sarita and Rosita win after 4 minutes and 58 seconds of wrestling to capture the Knockouts title. Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle segment follows here. We could have had this on Impact. This is a pay-per-view, and you just paid $40 for stupid, pointless Christy Hemme. Between Christy Hemme and these two, it was just ridiculous. Like, Hemme should not be allowed to commentate, and this storyline should die. And it'll go into my Angle segment and is in my blog, facebook.com/CWE Company, directly, I believe, above or under yesterday's video. Next up, Matt Morgan versus Hernandez in a first blood match. Blood on Morgan's chest. The ref thinks that it's Morgan's blood when it's really Hernandez's. Turns into a ref screw job where the ref declares Hernandez the winner after 8 minutes and 35 seconds after seeing said what was Hernandez's blood on Morgan's chest. Next, four-way dance for the X Division title. Kaz versus Max Buck versus Jeremy Buck versus Robbie E. with Cookie. Kaz retains the title after 14 minutes and 22 seconds. TNA tag titles on the line next against tag champions Beer Money versus Inc. Inc. Beer Money retains after 12 minutes and 30 seconds. AJ Styles versus Matt Morgan with Ric Flair. Styles hits the spiral tap on Hardy after 17 minutes and 38 seconds, and then Styles pretty much low blows Ric Flair. Next up, Anderson versus RVD in your number one contender match for the TNA World Heavyweight title. And this was just the beginning of disappointment, as if it wasn't disappointing. There were some good matches, but it's TNA. This match results in a double countout at the 12 minute and 54 second marker. Outcome to be determined this Thursday on Impact. So you made us pay $40, and your conclusion's going to be on free TV. Really? Really? Vince Russo, quit. Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan, quit. I know, Hogan, you have money problems and you need this, but all three of you collectively, and with Dixie's nod and wanting to be a friendly boss instead of a boss, you've turned this into a bore fest. We literally paid 40 minutes, and listen to this, it gets worse. Next up is Sting versus Jeff Hardy for the TNA World title. No disqualification match. Here it comes, folks. What you paid between the two matches and all the other bullshit. At the 1 minute and 28 second marker, Sting retains the title with the Scorpion Death Drop. So not only have you paid $40 for the following: a bunch of Christy Hemme interviews, Jeff and Karen Angle discussing having a honeymoon segment and their segments being a part of this pay-per-view. Instead of throwing this bullshit on free TV, you have a double countout for your number one contendership match. You have honeymoon segments, and you have your world title match end in less than 2 minutes with surprise Sting. I said this for one pay-per-view. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to say them for all of them. Call your local cable company. Call Panda Energy. Look it up. Call TNA corporate offices. Demand your money back. Because here's your end result. Sting is still your champion. You're not going to find out until probably another match goes down next week on Impact that will truly determine, undisputedly, I'm assuming they'll use that word in some fashion, determine your number one contender. But you're going to get what you thought you were going to get on your pay-per-view is now going to be given away for free on Impact. And what's their excuse going to be? Ratings. Because they're using that whole network thing. Because Vince Russo wishes he were back in WCW. And now let's get into it. Our segment for the day is Angle's disrespect to the world of professional wrestling. And this looks like it'll go on for about an hour, folks. So enjoy the extra content. Angle disrespects the world of professional wrestling, and Jeff and Karen Jarrett continue to disrespect themselves, exploit their children with Angle involved. Angle exploit his children. Angle commented yesterday or the day before in a recent interview, for those of you who haven't seen the video yet, that he is looking to work a part-time schedule again with World Wrestling Entertainment, but has made it clear that he will retire with TNA Wrestling. So here it is in a nutshell. Vince, give me my job back. Okay, Kurt, you sold for us before. Oh yeah, by the way, I don't want the road schedule. That's why I sneakily told you years ago I had a family emergency and signed with TNA. I don't want the road schedule. And when I feel it's time, I'm going to retire back with your competitor. But I think I'm still relevant enough to work for you, and you should be able to accept that, right, Vince? That you're not going to get to retire me, TNA will, because I've done so little in wrestling, or not so little, but I've only been out here a little while in general, and now I think I can pull an Undertaker or Kevin Nash Legends contract. You're not going to tell me who and what to wrestle for. I'm going to come in, wrestle for you, and when I decide to leave, you just need to accept it. The fans don't matter. Your company doesn't matter. I just want to be in your company because you'll pay me more, and hopefully you'll tell me I don't have to be on the road. Otherwise, I won't take the contract because I'm the best wrestler, but I don't travel past the Impact Zone or Ohio or whatever within the 20-mile radius that TNA works. So Angle, this is directed at you, really. Go hang out with Snooki. You put your boots in the ring, you're done. And here was my philosophy in the blog. Again, check it out, facebook.com/CWE Company. It's right in my notes section, or if you look on my wall, it should be right below or above yesterday's video. I'm going to laugh my balls off because we all know Dixie Carter needs to wake up and start being a promoter and stop trying to be everyone's friend. That's the reason that Kevin Nash got away with what he shouldn't have legally been allowed to do. He should have been forced to work the rest of that reveal. And then once that was clear and new storylines were established, if Kevin Nash wants to leave, he has been overexposed anyway, but if Kevin Nash wants to leave, then fine. I can't wait for him to leave TNA, because we all know Dixie will let him do it. Dixie would rather be your friend than your boss. He leaves TNA, goes to WWE corporate. Since he's made this public, his intentions, Vince McMahon laugh him out the door. And then when he goes back to work for TNA, you do what a normal promoter would do and say, I thought your loyalties were with us, but now you want to play both sides of the fence, Kurt. So you know what? No. You're a wrestling legend in the WWE, and you'll hold a wrestling spot, figuratively, here in TNA. But we are not continuing, renewing, extending your contract. Kurt Angle with TNA should be done. Do not let this man play both sides. No one else would be allowed to do it. He's not that good. He's not at a Shawn Michaels or Undertaker level. Granted, in comparison, when TNA Impact matches are boring, he holds a decent enough match that will break the boredom in the crowd, but he's not at the Michaels Undertaker level. He's retired and quit, so force his hand. Do it before he gets the mentality that he can bounce from company to company. Because I'm waiting for the news to break out. Kurt Angle proposes coming back to WWE. WWE blatantly says no. And really, what kind of man, and this includes you, Jeff Jarrett, and Karen Angle, you can't have much going for you when all three of you and the writers get together and say, you know, it would be a good idea. It's bad enough we got divorced, and anybody in their right mind, I don't know any divorced person that wants their divorce made public. But we don't have anything for you guys to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring back Karen Jarrett, make her play the abused wife, and how Jeff's the best thing that happened to her. We're renewing our vows in Angle's face, which is supposed to create fury. I get that. But then we're going to use our children, show them pictures of Kurt Angle and Jeff Jarrett getting hit and injured, and then exploit them in last month's pay-per-view where if Angle won, Jarrett had to divorce Karen, or if Angle won, they gave up custody of the kids, and Angle wanted something to where if he won or something like that, Jarrett divorced Karen. Yeah, let's exploit that way when they're 15, 16 years old and they're going to therapists and they tell the therapist that they were exploited. You can pay that bill and then try and explain that it was just for entertainment. Until next time, visit WrestleTalkShow.webs.com, interact with our forums, friend us on Facebook and Twitter at CWE Company. Friend us both on Facebook and Twitter at CWE Company. Send show direct emails to cwecompany@gmail.com. Post direct comments to the video directly under this video after it posts to YouTube or on the forums. Propose a question. We'll answer it. We thank you for your support. Visit our friends at pwtorch.com with minute-to-minute coverage on anything, everything wrestling. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, the 3-hour podcast of smartwrestlingfan.com, which you can look them up at smartwrestlingfan.com, all one word. And until next time, enjoy your Monday Night Raw and look forward to ratings and news for the week.